Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. I'm your host, Chris Enriquez. Thanks for joining me and spending your Thursday evening with me. Hope you're all out there staying safe and having a great week so far. Really excited about how the week has been going. Had a great episode with Barney from Napalm Death the other day over in the UK. Lots of folks submitting questions. It was a great time. And same with this episode. If you guys have any questions that you want to submit, there's a question mark box at the bottom of the screen that you can use, and I will get to those at about half past the hour. And real quick, a little shameless self promo. I'm wearing some St. Vitus merch. If you like St. Vitus and want to support, they could really use your help right now. Support independent businesses and buy merch and all that good stuff. There's a lot of great stuff online in the St. Vitus merch store, from camo hats to beanies and t-shirts and tank tops and all sorts of stuff. Okay, well, as you can hear, I have some music playing in the background. This is one of my favorite songs by a band called Minus the Bear, Absinthe Party at the Fly Honey Warehouse from 2002's Highly Refined Pirates. The gentleman who plays drums on that is about to join me, Erin Tate of Minus the Bear. He was also in Kill Sadie. He was also in briefly in Unwed Sailor, and he's in a band called Ghostwork, and he also played in These Arms Are Snakes. The list goes on. He was in a ton of amazing bands. We'll get to discussing all of those things. And we will also talk about Indie Drum Collective, which is a really cool collective of amazing drummers that he started. I'm actually part of it, and it's been a lot of fun. I'll let him sort of tell the story and background, what that's all about. But without further ado, I will stop the music because it looks like he's ready to join, and I cannot wait to talk to him. All right, here we go, guys. Like I said, if you have any questions, just use the question mark box. Aaron,
Hi,
how are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking at you sideways, though. I just
Yeah,
realized.
that's okay. I'll just do this thing.
Awesome. Look at
Hi.
that awesome view that you got there.
I'm not sideways anymore.
No, you're good. You're looking good, man.
Cool. How
Thanks
you
for
doing?
doing this with me and making time.
No sweat. It's funny seeing you here.
Yes, seriously. So yeah, I was just giving an intro on who you are and what you've done. I guess now your followers are joined into the live stream. So the name of the show is Age of Quarantine. I do this about 5 days a week, and a bunch of people are tuned in right now that might have questions throughout. So I'm going to take those at about half past the hour. But yeah, I like to use this I like to call it a glorified therapy session, if you will, because I like to dig deep and ask questions about you, musically, where you grew up, where you're at now, what you're doing. So if that's cool, I got a lot for you, man.
Yeah, the therapy's great. Let's do it.
Cool. Well, first of all, I ask everybody this obvious one, but have you been managing to get through this strange time for the past year?
Oh man, it's been a thing. I'm a essential worker, so I've actually been working this whole time. I'm a mental health case manager for the chronically homeless, and so I've got a caseload of about 37 people, and so I haven't really stopped at all. I've just been going. That said, outside of work, the mentioned Indie Drummer Collective has been helping a lot. We started, when did I start that? March, I think. So kind of at the beginning of all this, and it's been a great focus. But besides that, just a lot of quarantining, a lot of outside support, that kind of stuff.
A lot of drumming, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
Well, let's take it back for a second. I mean, we don't have to get into your personal too much, but you did mention your job, which is awesome. I think it's great. You mentioned a little bit about that to me offline, which I didn't know too much about. I think it's great whenever I hear about somebody doing something for the community and helping people. How long have you been doing that, and has the pandemic made I would assume made it way more intense than a regular time?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shit show.
Yeah.
Just with everything closed, and or I might get to that. I've been I've been in this like line of work, the social work aspect, I guess, for about 4 years now. I started working. I just kind of like literally at some point I just needed a job, and a friend of mine was like, "Oh, I think you'd be really good at this," and I applied to just work at a homeless shelter. And like literally day one, I was like, "Oh, this is fucking great." And I was kind of just going through a pretty dark period of my life, and wanted to kind of fill a void, I suppose. And so I started working just at this shelter and just doing like whatever was needed. Then I went from there. I work for an organization here called DESC, which is Downtown Emergency Service Center. And it just developed into, I started doing from shelters to housing and just kind of bouncing around. And a couple years ago, I have no college. I started touring like right when high school was done. So I never went to college. But I fell into the gig quickly, and without a degree, I applied for this case management position, and 2 years and a few months later, here I am still.
I think that's wonderful, man, that you're doing. It's got to feel good at the end of the day knowing that you've helped out people that you may not know well. You're just helping people that are in need. I'm going to take some quick comments because as we keep going, we're going to miss them. But some kind words from a buddy here in Brooklyn who's in some great bands. Semaphore Music says that you are his favorite drummer.
Oh,
And at This Is Me says me too. So you got some people out here that are pumped. So you talked about Indie Drum Collective, which I obviously know what it is because I'm part of it too. That's in a way, you said it's been helping, but it's probably helping a lot of people that are in it too. Because many of us are working musicians who are not touring, not performing as much. So talk about how the idea started, what it is, and let's kind of get into that a little bit before we delve into how you got started with your career.
totally. So yeah, I guess whoa, I just fell.
No worries.
I'm not prepared. Post-work Erin was a little crazy. Anyhow, yeah, it's like the COVID started, and I hadn't really been playing drums. I just got asked, I think in February, I had just gotten asked to play drums in Unwed Sailor, and so I hadn't done anything yet. Jonathan, who is Unwed Sailor, lives in Tulsa, and I kind of was just sitting around on my ass, and I kind of just through social media was like talking to a bunch of people and talking to a bunch of different drummers, and I was randomly talking to a drummer who was like one of my favorite drummers in the world, and he was like, it was one of those moments where I was like, I can't believe I'm talking to this dude. And just through social media, and he was talking about just how he doesn't play anymore, and it was one of those moments where it was like, as a massive fan, I was kind of heartbroken about it. And we were talking about why he doesn't play, which is there was COVID, but then it's also like I know a lot of drummers won't agree with this, but for me personally, like playing drums by myself is pretty boring. Like,
I don't really do it, to be honest with you.
a lot of drummers don't, but a lot of them do. I mean, there's a lot of drummers on the collective that can just like sit down and rip a fucking a drum solo, or are really good. And I'm just not that type of drummer. I kind of like need focus. And one thing that I did like really early on and I guess I can get into this later, but like with Minus the Bear, I really wanted to try some kind of different stuff, and I played along to a lot of like electronic music, and that was also the first time where I ever started trying to learn how to play to a click. And so to focus on like playing electronic music and stuff, that really helped, and it was fun. It was fun playing like Kylie Minogue songs and Justin Timberlake songs and Daft Punk and just stuff that was like out, back in the early 2000s.
That makes so much sense, by the way. I can hear that. Yeah.
I was thinking today is the 18th birthday of the first Minus the Bear record today, I guess. I didn't even realize that. But
is that the EP or Highly Refined Pirates?
The Highly Refined Pirates. So.
Oh wow.
Which, I mean, if you listen to that record, there's like direct beats ripped off from Justin Timberlake. Like the Neptunes were really big then, Pharrell Williams' production group. So anyhow, that was what was fun for me. And so I had an electronic drum kit and I was playing along, and the idea just kind of hit me that a lot of drummers were going to go through this, right? And so I had been talking to again via social media. I've never even met him in person, but Chris Daly from Texas Is the Reason and I were just kind of chatting
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just
not
chatting.
A good friend, but we're buds.
Yeah, Chris is the best, and and I just was like, hey, I have an idea. Why don't we each let's cover a song and then put it out at the same time. It'll be fun. Because what it was is that I was trying to learn the Texas Is the Reason Promise Ring split 7-inch on my own.
Hell yeah.
And who can play those drums? Thanks, Dan. That guy's too good. So I went to Chris with the idea, and he said, he was just like, no, not really. And then I just kind of kept bugging him about it. And I suckered him into it because I was like, hey, how about Scott McPherson from Sensefield? And so we agreed to do a Sensefield song. We each did one, and we released it at the exact same time, and it was really fun. And then I was like, we should do this again, but let's invite more people. And so, it was kind of like pulling teeth at the very beginning, because everyone was just like, that sounds really dumb, Erin. And then, we did the first month. I think the first technical month as the collective was April. And Tucker from Thursday agreed to do it, and Luke from Piebald, and Ron Marshall from Christie Front Drive, and trying to think, Chris had invited Charlie Walker. I'd never met Charlie, but from the band Chamberlain.
So literally my entire CD booklet in 1999.
Yeah, totally. It was like my running joke at the very beginning was that we were like the washed up emo of drummers, and talking to Tom from Washed Up Emo, I was like, how are you not picking up on this? But
I wonder he's a good friend of mine too. He's been on this show before.
Tom's great. But yeah, I mean, it kind of just started like that. It was like we did the first post together, like 5 or 6 of us, or 6 or 7 of us, and like not even giving a fuck about what other people thought of it. We had so much fun doing it, and it was like, holy shit, like blah blah blah. And so it just started, and I just kind of started being like, well, this is a cool idea. I wonder if other people would be into doing it. And so I just started randomly inviting people, and it went from, each month we've grown. It went from 2 of us to 6 of us to 10 of us to 12. I think the last y'all just did that YouTube post. I didn't do that one, but the last one, we did a protest song one in October, and it was 31 drummers, I think. And there's in the collective, I think we just added, ironically, Scott McPherson from Sensefield was just joined, and I think he's like the 66th person to join. So it's really crazy. And I was actually texting with him today, and he was like, oh, I don't want to bother you. I'm sure takes a lot of work. And I was like, yeah, it's like, sometimes it can be like a second job. There's a lot of stuff to organize, and like, just, I enjoy it so much. And people, there's like 20 or 30 of us that are very active in it. And we have as Chris, we have like a chat room, and we all just talk. It's basically almost like, it's cool. We do these like once a month posts. We pick a band or a theme, and we all do them. But it's almost like drummer therapy. Like, we're all just talking, and we started doing like Zoom chats that last like the last one we did was 3 hours.
Oh man, yeah, I was only on for part of it. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I was really bummed because I left before some of the folks that I've only talked to on social media or on the on the Slack, but never like this.
It's cool, man, and it's really great. It's like there's a lot of bigger drummers, and then there's a lot of smaller drummers, and it's like it's just like, leave all your shit at the door and let's talk about drums and let's hang out. And it's really funny. Dan used in one of something he said in the chat room like 3 months ago was like #new best friends. And it really just got me to thinking. I was just like, it's so crazy that, like we because of this thing, like a lot of us have become like legitimate kind of friends now. And like we kind of talk to each other every day. It's weird.
It's true. Yeah. I gotta also say too, like it's a nice thing to imagine that when if and when we can, I don't want to say if, but when we can go back on tour, that now when you end up in certain cities, you
Yeah.
can go on there and be like, hey,
Yeah, it's
I
weird.
put you on the guest list. You want to grab dinner?
Yeah, totally.
That makes it so much more fun. But before we go on, and I want to just mention a few more things about Indie Drummer Collective. I noticed that the same guy commenting that you were his favorite drummer at Semaphore Music just said he covered the entire Minus the Bear Highly Refined Pirates album by himself on YouTube on guitar. So
Oh,
that's pretty wild if anyone wants to check that out.
Dave Knutson is big shoes to fill, man.
Yeah.
Guy's a sick guitar player.
Well, I want to talk about how you got started with drumming and how you discovered music and all that. But let's just let people know real quick. If anybody out there wants to watch the content, I guess all they have to do is use the hashtag Indie Drummer Collective on Instagram, and then a whole bunch of videos should pop up. Right? That's how it works.
Yeah. We finally started a YouTube page we did. So a bunch of us did Def Leppard Hysteria as a whole, and so we started the YouTube page for that, and eventually we will be putting everything on there because we do like a drummer of the week. I send interview questions to a drummer and then I edit it together, and so we have. I mean, how many of those do we have now? Like 7 or 8 of those now, and
Yeah.
so those are every Wednesday. I post those, and so we have a lot of content. I'm just lazy. I mean, I'm not lazy.
You're not lazy, dude.
I'm
You
doing
do a
a
lot.
lot. Yeah.
You do a lot.
It's hard to do a lot of it. So yeah. Anyhow, that'll be up on YouTube. But yeah, on Instagram. It's just the hashtag for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Charlotte and Dole. How you doing? Thanks for watching. As I see some of the questions in the beginning of the episode, which you might have missed. There is a question mark box on the bottom of the screen, which I will use in about 15 minutes for anyone with questions. So I do see them, but it's just hard to get to all of them as the comments are going up. But all right, so how did you get your start as a drummer? When and how did all of that begin for you?
I was really young. It's kind of funny. Ron Marshall from Christie Front Drive, when he just did his drummer of the week thing, his start is a lot like mine. I was with a group of friends, one of them being my older brother, my brother Noel, and he's 4 years older, and his friend, and they each got a guitar and a bass, and it was just kind of like, cool, Aaron, you got to play drums, like in order to complete the band. And so, basically my older brother told me that I had to do it. And I don't even remember how, I was 7, maybe 8.
Wow.
I was pretty young. And my wonderful mother bought me a drum set, and I just kind of went from there. We were really into, again, I was following my older brother around. And so I just did everything he said. And the first like band that we were both into was Kiss.
Everyone says that. Well, if you're in like the 40 plus bracket, which
I just turned 42 like a week or two ago, so that's that. And it was like my first concert, and like I went and but it was really what it was. Kiss was great, and I really liked it. But I saw when Appetite for Destruction came out.
Yeah.
They weren't Guns N' Roses yet, and they opened for Alice Cooper on a festival tour, arena tour. So, they played a 30-minute slot because that record, I think Welcome to the Jungle had just come out as a single. And that was the first time where I looked at a band and went, yeah, that's what I want to do. So I'd already been playing a little bit, I think, at that point. But that was the turning point for me.
And were you, when your brother encouraged you, were you self-taught? Did you just figure it out on your own?
Yeah. I've never taken lessons. Well, I shouldn't say never. My mom offered to do some, and I went to a guy's house, and basically he sat me. The only thing I really remember, I don't even know if I ever actually sat behind the kid, or maybe I sat behind the kid so he could show me his like weird thing. And he handed me a copy. It's funny, I didn't remember this until like a couple years ago, but he handed me a copy of a King Crimson record and was like, "This is why people play drums." And I'm like 8, 9 years old, going like, "What the fuck?" But I think I like met with him twice, and those were considered lessons. And then I attempted to go to college after high school for like a minute before we booked our first tour and left. And I was going to take some jazz drumming classes because I thought that that would be a thing. I grew up in Minneapolis, and the reason why is the teacher there was actually, I think he was the sit-in drummer for Prince for a while.
Oh, geez.
And so I had heard that and was like, might as well learn from him. And I think I took one lesson with him, and he basically was like, sit down and show me what you can do. And at that time I was listening to like a lot of punk and hardcore. And so I just, he took one look at me and was like, yeah, why are you here?
I want to get into that because that obviously is going to take us through the journey. But I'm going to try not to get sidetracked too much. It happens, but I do want to comment that I share the Guns N' Roses Appetite thing in common with you because there was something about Steven Adler's drumming that was so understandable beyond the band being pretty bad. I was like, you listen to that, it's a great record to just sit down and try, in the same way that maybe the Ramones might have made sense for somebody.
Yeah, I have like a list of records where it's the perfect drumming for that band, for that record, and obviously my own opinion, right? But that is one of them for sure.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Minneapolis. I didn't know that. I was assuming that you were from Seattle. I think that's where you are now, right?
Yeah.
But how did Minneapolis shape you in terms of your musical journey? Maybe we could blend that into discovering punk and hardcore because that's a local scene, obviously, when you're growing up. Like, how did that enter your life?
I had a brother that was 4 years older, and he was, he got into everything before me. And there is the legendary music venue there called First Avenue, and connected to First Avenue is a tiny little room called the 7th Street Entry. And it was a little before my time, but like that's where like Husker Du played and the Replacements and stuff like that. And that was all a handful of years before my time. But I started going to punk rock shows there and like seeing Alternative Tentacles bands, and that's just kind of where it started. There was a few at that, like in those early days, there was a couple bands that were like starting to break. There was a band from Mankato, Minnesota called the Libido Boys. And then, odd story, the bass player from the Libido Boys went on to be in Threadbare.
I remember Threadbare.
And then went on to be in Snapcase, and then I play in that Ghost Work band with him, my friend Dustin. So I actually like grew up. He's quite a few years older than me. And so I actually like grew up going to see his band, and like they got signed to a major label and like played their first like big First Avenue show opening for Nirvana. And I like got to like be the roadie at that show. And so I met Nirvana. Hi, Dustin. I see you. I love you too.
That's wild.
So
the Libido Boys that got signed to a major label.
Mankato Farmcore, man. That shit was so sweet. They were great. And Dustin is great. But then, from there it went to, I listened to like a lot of hip hop for a long time in my early days. And then I kind of started getting into punk, and it was, from that, I kind of like my brother again started transitioning over more, and just people we were hanging out with, and bands like Disembodied.
Oh yeah, I remember
from
that
Minneapolis, and Harvest, and
fuck yeah.
There was a long list of like hardcore bands that were kind of coming out around that time, and that was when my brother and I can't even remember what we were doing, but we decided to drop everything we were doing and start a band that turned into a band called Kill Sadie.
Mm-hmm. And was that your first band?
I would say it's like my first real band. Yeah. It was like literally started because my brother said, let's start a band that sounds exactly like Ink and Dagger and Lifetime.
Those are good bands to rip off.
Totally. So if you listen to the first Kill Sadie 7-inch, I would say it sounds like those two bands.
I heard, it's funny. It's like, I knew you were in Kill Sadie. I forgot that until I started doing my research leading up to this interview. But all of those bands, including Kill Sadie, were bands that were thrown on my radar when I was getting into hardcore, which was in the mid to late 90s, because that was what was contemporary at the time. A lot of really inventive time period too, or let me just rephrase that, a very innovative time period for that style of music.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool stuff, and obviously like the roots of a lot of the bands that you ended up being in, like Minus the Bear and so forth, are rooted in punk and hardcore bands, which is cool. So why don't we talk about Kill Sadie a little bit, and then transition to when and how Minus the Bear came to be after that. But we'll, let's start there.
Yeah,
Kill
totally.
Sadie.
Kill Sadie started, and we just kind of immediately had a drive to like actually, I mean, we were all like 18. I think I was 18, 17, 18 at the time, and it was like, let's get out and tour. And we did our first tour ever on a 7-inch, and it was the best thing of my life. I was like, fuck yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. And we Kill Sadie is like one of those bands that had I by the end of the band, I was the only original member. We had so many different lineup changes, and we toured, or we played as a Minneapolis band for a long time, and played with a lot of great bands. And we just kind of had the idea that we wanted to move somewhere as a band and be like, we're going to take ourselves out of our comfort zone to like create our own comfort zone, which would be like touring and playing music. And we did 2 really long tours, like one of the East and the South, and then one of the South and the West. And they were both, I think each tour was like a month and a half. And the goal was to pick a place to live.
Oh, wow.
And Seattle was the second to last place. I think we played like Montana after here. And then it boiled down to either Philadelphia or Seattle. And again, like Philadelphia was just fun, like good times. But then, we picked Seattle, and it just kind of worked out that we were going to come here. So I think we decided that in November of 98, and I moved here March of 99. And then the band
post grunge, I guess.
Yeah, I missed the fun, as it were. But yeah, so we all moved here in 99. The rest of the band came out 3 or 4 months after me, 2 or 3 months after me, I can't remember. And then we just started touring like right away. That was what we did. We did the punk rock thing where the 5 band members plus our roadie plus everyone's girlfriends all lived in a house. So it was like 10 of us all living in a house together.
Oh fuck yeah, the punk house.
Yeah, the punk house. So yeah, it was pretty cool. It was really fun, and it was a little weird adapting to Seattle at first, but it was great. It didn't really. There's a thing here that everyone calls the Seattle freeze. Which is, it's like hard to get adjusted here, but it didn't really matter because we had our built-in friend group already here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you've been there for quite some time now, which is why I thought that you were originally from there. And it's a rich music scene, which goes without saying. Even still to this day, having toured and played at the God, I can't remember the big venue there, but it's still thriving now. Let's talk about. I think I told you the time goes by so quickly, and we apparently have been already on for 30 minutes. So there's a lot more ground to cover. But with Minus the Bear, when and how did Minus the Bear come to be?
So yeah, Kill Sadie and Botch had played a bunch together. Botch,
what an amazing band.
Yeah, one of the best. And we were all, essentially it was all like we were all drinking buddies. Everyone would be out at the bar, everyone from every band. And there was a particular bar here that like hired almost all exclusive touring musicians so they could come and go, and had become really good friends with Dave Knutson. And then Corey, the bass player, ended up joining Kill Sadie when our bass player quit. So Dave Knutson like wrote a tapping riff and brought it to Botch, and Botch didn't like it, and he really liked it, and so he brought it to me and Corey and was like, hey, I have this thing I want to try, and they're like, we should start a band. And I said no at first, actually, because I was so dedicated to Kill Sadie. Like, we all moved here, and the point of doing that was to do that. And right at that time, Jay from Kill Sadie and Derek from Murder City Devils started playing together, which created Pretty Girls Make Graves. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I kind of did this like, fine, well, if you're going to go play with someone, I'll go play with someone thing. And I went and I finally grabbed Dave and I was like, yeah, okay, let's go play these riffs. And there's a song on the first EP, Minus the Bear EP called Lemurs, Man Lemurs. And that was actually that riff, which funny enough, it was actually brought to be a botch riff, but turned into what became Minus the Bear. And then it was just fun. The three of us, and then Matt Bayless, who was a producer engineer, we got him to play keyboards. And I think Dave and Corey originally tried to sing and that wasn't good. And I knew Jake Snyder, because I was we were friends by this point, but I was also a massive fan of his old band Sharks Keep Moving. Still just goddamn so good. So I basically talked to Jake into the band, and that's kind of how we started. But and then like right when that happened, Kill Sadie broke up, Murder City Devils broke up, Botch broke up, and from those three bands breaking up, Minus the Bear, Pretty Girls Make Graves, and These Arms Are Snakes all started.
I knew there was a connection between These Arms Are Snakes and Minus the Bear. I did not know about the connection to Pretty Girls Make Graves, which is super cool. They were another band that was quite popular during that time period.
Yeah.
I got to echo what at Jason Dodson is saying. I will never think of that song the same. I'm actually going to put that on when we're done here because I loved Botch and I love Minus the Bear, and that is just really, I love little anecdotes like that, little trivia things. You talked a bit about like how you would come up with your drumming, playing along to electronic stuff. I love that because there was a time period out here in New York where a lot of bands, like for example, Into Another was a great band that, jungle music and electronic music was real big, and everyone was trying to like incorporate that into their follow-up records. And for some, it worked out better than others. That was like a trend, I think, happening in the late 90s, early 2000s. In terms of the band sound, because you guys had a very unique sound of your own. You could tell, where it was coming from, but with the finger tapping and all that, like, can you talk about how you guys kind of developed? I mean, you already kind of did a little bit, maybe you could elaborate a little more.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to the first EP versus the first full length, like that's where, I mean, at least from my drumming perspective, like you can kind of tell the shift there. Like the first EP is still pretty like bashy and spazzy and like could be, like a punk band, but with Jake singing over it, so it just sounds mellower because Jake's just mellow. And then I mean, there was just this time where it was like we were all like just having a fucking blast. Like everything was fun. We had this incredibly like great group of friends, and we dubbed, I think the summer that we were writing Highly Refined Pirates, we dubbed it the Summer of Fun, and like all we listened to was like pop music, and it just beat into my brain. And then Dave and I wrote Highly Refined Pirates like pretty quickly, and it was just like, let's try copying, like I mentioned earlier, like Kylie Minogue, and that was like, I think that Body Language record of hers had just come out, and Daft Punk, that Daft Punk record had just come out, which just like blew our minds. And so
it was a really good record. And Kylie Minogue is amazing.
But it's kind of funny, like you can literally, like, if you listen to Minus the Bear, you can trace what Dave and I were listening to, and so that's for Highly Refined Pirates, like that's what we were listening to at the time, was just dancier music, and that's what changed it from the first EP to the first full length, I would say. I don't, maybe Dave would disagree, but
I can hear that for sure, because also, to take a trip back down memory lane, a lot of bands were becoming dancier by nature. There was that point of time where like in the indie bands from 2000 to 2010, just everyone had a dance beat, you know what I mean? But you guys just did it in a way cooler way, and I think it was before that wave sort of struck. It was a lot of influence from sort of the 90s indie rock, and kind of a great segue into the way things were kind of shaping up in that time period. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I was, and I still am, like, I'm a massive emo fan. Like those early, like mid, late 90s, early 2000s, like before emo was like a 4-letter word, like you know, some of those bands, like I quit playing drums for a while, and then I heard, like, this is when I was in my teens, and then I heard Sunny Day Real Estate for the first time and was like, guess what? I'm going to start playing drums again. You know, like it shaped me a lot. So it was, you know, definitely a lot of that in the early Menace to Bear for sure as well.
That's what I was alluding to. I'm glad you said it. And then the band really started in my. I mean, you have to realize. I mean, I'm all the way on the East Coast. I'm hearing about your band. My friends are getting into it. I have friends that are ripping off your band, you know, and trying to do finger tapping. There was a moment where everyone was trying to be like Menace to Bear. It seems like the band got popular pretty quickly. Would you agree with that?
It was weird. There was a really weird transition. You know, we lucked out. You know, people liked it for the first EP and the first full length, and you know, like we were under the ethic that like we're just going to tour all the time, nonstop. You know, and there was a transition that happened between Highly Refined Pirates and Menace El Oso. You know, we had been touring a lot, and Dave and I, Dave basically looked at me at practice. We had written, there was an EP in between those, but Dave looked at me at practice because I think we quit our jobs at that point, and Dave and I just rehearsed 5 days a week. We treated it like I was our job, but we just wrote and rehearsed. And he looked at me and he said, I don't want to play guitar on this record. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And he was like, what can I do? And so we came to the conclusion that he was going to get multiple sampling pedals. I mean, I will say he came to the conclusion of it. I helped him along the way. And that's what created the kind of this glitchy sound that became the Menace El Oso record. And I remember bringing like 4 or 5 songs to the guys, the other guys, and them just looking at us like, what the fuck is this? Like, what are you guys doing? But there was this moment I remember where we recorded Menace El Oso, you know, not thinking that it was anything besides just something that Dave and I were doing. We recorded the record and we were on a tour. And then, do you remember like back in the early 2000s when records would leak and there was like this major concern about
yeah.
While we were on a tour, we were on a tour with supporting the Straylight Run.
Yeah, I grew up playing shows with them.
Yeah, we were
in Long Island. Yeah.
I think it was them. We were like supporting them, and then we had like a headlining tour coming up, like a couple months later, and the record leaked, and it was like the best thing that could have happened to us. It was this like, oh my God, I can't, like it grew, like while we were on this mini tour, like it grew, and this thing blew up, and like all the shows that we were headlining, playing these like, you know, 100 capacity, 200 capacity venues sold out. And so we had to like bump them up to 300 capacity. And then it just went like, you know, that whole touring cycle, we went from like, you know, what, again, we were expecting to play, you know, 100 capacity rooms to like starting to do like 400 or 500 on our own. And
yeah.
that was like the turning point for the band.
The floodgates for, you know, the dreaded emo word really opened up at that point, because that was when it became mainstream, and certainly Straylight Run experienced some of that success. And you know, there were bands, I would say like Menace to Bear, who kind of kept and I'm not dissing any of the bands that got big, by the way, but like Menace to Bear kind of kept it true to that sort of 90s sound that we were talking about earlier. I feel the same about Cursive, who I know you did some touring with. They kind of had kept that kind of sound that was in that realm of like the Discord Records sub pop stuff. I loved Menace El Oso. It seemed for me, Planet of Ice was like, you know, that was a big one. I remember seeing you play here at Irving Plaza, and now we're talking about 1,000 capacity venue. It seemed to me that record really furthered you into becoming a household name at that point. At least in the underground. That
was like another definite shift change for sure. It was weird. Like, again, like I said earlier, like you can tell what Dave and I were listening to. Like when we hit Menace El Oso, we were listening to like Rat-a-Tat and like a lot of like glitchy. We went from like the pop electronic music on the first record to glitchy electronic music on the second. And then there was this legendary night in my mind that we were in England. And this guy was like, hey, you guys can come stay at my, we were still staying on people's floors. And he said, you guys can come stay at my house, but I have to warn you, my roommate smokes a lot of weed. And we were like, fuck yeah. And so we went and stayed at this guy's house, and we're just getting high as hell. We're funny, still friends with the guys on social media, but this guy put on Close to the Edge by Yes. And
Oh yeah.
literally, I don't know how, but literally none of us had ever heard of that record. And that was it. It was like, from that moment on, it went from like all this glitchy electronic to Dave and I listening to prog rock. And that's
That
how
is so funny.
it was. Like, it was this night, like had we have not stayed at those guys' house that night, I don't know what Planet of Ice would sound like. It was like the moment. It was really weird, but
I can hear that, especially with the keys too.
yeah. And then also that was the first record that Matt Bayless went on. Matt Bayless had to quit because he got some really good recording opportunities. He did what did he do? He did a Mastodon record. He had like a bunch of cool opportunities, and so he quit. And so we got Alex Rose to join on keyboards for Planet of Ice. But yeah, I mean that's the sound of that record for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I hear a prog influence even before that. I feel that it might be accidental, but there's definitely a prog vibe going on with Minus the Bear. Funny enough, the owner of Saint Vitus will be happy you mentioned that because his favorite band of all time is Yes. So there you go.
Yeah, they're real good.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you remember Error Type 11, but that's. Already the lead singer who owns St. Vitus, huge Yes fan. Okay, so eventually, and I'm bringing this up, which is funny, because it wasn't until we had our Zoom chat with everybody that I turned around and realized, oh shit, I have a Minus the Bear flyer, because that flyer is in my apartment.
Yeah.
And it's when you opened up for the Foo Fighters and Supergrass. I wanted to talk about that because the band was obviously starting to get bigger. That's an arena show. When and how did that show come about? And maybe you could talk about some other holy shit moments, like that's what I like to call them, that sort of happened throughout that journey.
Yeah, the Foo Fighter stuff was pretty early on. I want to say I don't even think Monticello Oso had come out at that point. Nate Mandel from the band is a friend, and he was kind of doing. I would imagine. I mean, he probably wouldn't say it, but he was probably doing us a favor. He's such a nice guy that he wouldn't do that. But Dave Grohl likes the band. There was like, we were in England and someone handed us a magazine that Dave had written this article that was like, my new favorite band is Minus the Bear. And he wore one of our shirts on they're all, they're as rock starry as they are, they also know where they came from and, help out other bands and stuff. So they threw us a bone and paid us $100 to play an arena show.
I couldn't agree with you more. Nate actually played at St. Vitus with his lieutenant.
Yeah.
Super awesome guy. And like you said, Dave never forgot where he came from. When Nirvana was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they actually showed up to St. Vitus afterwards and did a 2-hour show that was sort of put together very DIY. So those guys, that's cool to hear that, because they really, all of them definitely did not forget where they came from.
Yeah. I mean, they are who they are, like he's fucking Dave Grohl. Like,
yeah,
he is his own entity at this point.
Absolutely. In terms of like I was saying, like holy shit moments where the band really started to, take off into places that maybe you hadn't imagined, or maybe you did, and then it came true. What were some highlights for you personally throughout your time with that band?
I mean, like personally, my highlight stuff was more like going to other countries and being able to play music in like we went to Japan 3 times, and Japan, if you've ever been there, is the best place in the world. But we got to like play a show in Iceland, and like there was some cool stuff like that. I was just coming from such a DIY like punk rock van, sleeping on people's floors, like it was insane to me that I got to travel and play music. But there was a lot of stuff. Like we played the second time we played Coachella twice, and like the second time our stage, I don't remember who opened the stage, but it was there was an opener, and then it was us, and then it was Devo, Portishead, and Prince. So like we opened for Devo, Portishead, and Prince, and you know there
That's
was
insane.
a lot of those festivals are always really crazy and whatnot. I don't know, like my oh shit moments were like more came from like the experience of getting to do the stuff that we got to do.
No, of course. I mean, there's nothing like waking up and being like, I'm in Italy because I play drums, or
Yeah.
I'm in, those are the moments that on a personal level, you're going to really, you got to cherish in a certain way. Um, in terms of, on that topic, in terms of being a musician, what's your favorite part? Is it writing, recording, playing shows? Speaking for myself, I love all of it. I'm a shows guy. Recording stresses me out. And I always go back and go, man, I wish I played this differently. I hate that so much. But yeah, like for you, what's your favorite part?
It's like super mood dependent or wherever I'm at in my life. I love shows. I miss shows. I haven't like been a show playing drummer since 2014. So it's been a long time. Like I have some local stuff that I do, but I also don't miss it too much because I'm kind of old and I kind of like just being an old dude now. But
I'm right behind you. You're not that old.
I love recording, but it also stresses me out. And every time I do it, I'm like, all right. And every time I like look back on something, I'm like, like I'm not super happy with how I did that or whatever. And, wish I could have done it again or wish I had more time. And, but I'm just trying to learn how to let that stuff go and just be like, play from where I am. And I love writing. I haven't had the opportunity to be in a band where I like actually sit and write like I did with Minus the Bear and like I did with Kill Sadie, where like me and the guitar player wrote, essentially all of the music.
Yeah.
I'm not going to discredit what Alex or Corey or Jake added to Minus the Bear music, but there was a couple records where it was literally, Dave and I wrote everything,
Sure,
and then
sure.
those guys came in and put their parts on it, and I haven't been able to be in a band like that since Minus the Bear, and so that's something that I would like to do again, and I miss that creative process quite a bit.
Absolutely. And let everybody know too, this entire episode, for those of you that are commenting, is going to be on the St. Vitus channel as soon as we wrap it up. If you missed the beginning and want to go back, if you enjoyed any of the stories that we talked about, and it's going to be on YouTube, on my YouTube channel within the next few weeks. So yeah, thanks to everybody that is stoked and showing interest here. Since Minus the Bear, you've done a bunch of different things. Obviously you just said that it's been a while since you were playing shows and whatnot, but during the time you were in These Arms Are Snakes, actually briefly during that time that you were in Minus the Bear, and then eventually you went on to do other stuff. You're in Ghost Work, you were doing On Wed Sailor. Maybe can you talk about These Arms Are Snakes for a bit, and then let us know what you've done since Minus the Bear and where you're at?
Yeah, when I was my brief period with the Snakes was actually when I was in Minus the Bear. Also, they had lost their drummer and asked me to do it. Steve, the singer, was in my old band Kill Sadie, and just we're all friends. And so I mentioned this on like Instagram recently because I thought about it. Where Dave, we all had the same practice space. Dave and I were upstairs, and the Snakes were downstairs. And so Dave and I, Monday through Friday, were upstairs writing Menace Al Oso. And then at 5 o'clock, Dave would go home, and I would bring my drum set downstairs. And then I wrote from 5 to 9. 3 to 4 days a week, I would write what became the album that I played on with the Snakes, Ox and Ears. So I wrote Ox and Ears and Menace Al Oso at the same time.
Wow, that's awesome, man! I fucking love that record.
Yeah,
Both
me
those
too.
records, yeah.
It's really good. I mean, Brian and Ryan from the Snakes are just fucking bonkers musicians. They're super great. So it was fun. I was committed to Minus the Bear at that point, so I did one tour with the Snakes, and then that was all I was really signed up for, was a record and a tour.
Yeah. There's a question that popped in here. I'm just going to put it on the screen real quick. And I'm sorry to anybody that was leaving them in the comments if I didn't get to those, but we'll take this one here. A lot of Minus the Bear openers went on for more of a pop went. Oh, I see what he's saying. A lot of openers for Midas the Bear went on to pop fame. Young the Giant, Portugal the Man. How do you? What is he saying? I'm sorry, man. Your question got cut off. It is too many words, I guess. I didn't know that though. I guess a lot of bands that opened up for you guys ended up.
Yeah, we took Young the Giant out on their first tour ever as that band, and then we took Portugal the Man out when they were. I don't even know how long they had been a band, but they weren't that big. And there's a slew of other bands. What is that band that's on Barsuk? I can't remember the name. It's a two-piece guy and a girl. I can't remember their name right now.
Is it Matt and Kim? Or?
No. As soon as I stop thinking about it, I'll remember it. But yeah, there's a bunch of bands, and I think it's fucking awesome. I think it's really cool to have like, Midas the Bear hand selected like everyone that we took out because we had so many bands help us out when we were young. Like Braid took us on their reunion tour when we were really young, and that helped us out. And you'd mentioned Cursive earlier, and Engine Down. We just had like a bunch of bands that took a chance on us, and we kind of would strive to do that with other bands. We also wanted like eclectic bills, so we took out metal bands and hip hop artists and stuff. But yeah,
very cool. That's what it's all about. It's
Phanogram.
Oh,
yes.
Phanogram. There you go.
Totally. Thank you.
It's all about it's all about paying it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have 9 minutes. As I mentioned, the Instagram timer literally cuts you off before you can even say goodbye to anybody. So I'll let you know if it's at that point if I interrupt you while you're speaking. But since then, what am I missing? Because I know you have Ghost Work, which I'd love to hear a little bit more about, and then you did some stuff with Unwed Sailor. Can you catch us up to speed on what's happening?
Totally. I quit playing music for about a year after Minus the Bear. I was just pretty wrecked. I had to go through a bunch of shit in my life, and I got sober. Or I was attempting to try to get sober, I should say there. I went through a divorce, really bad child custody, a bunch of stuff. And I quit playing music for a while. And then I met a guy in the AA program, and he offered to play with me. And I was like, this seems like I could do that. And so I started a band with I'm in a band called the National Guard, which is essentially just a grunge band. It's Nick, who was one of the original members of Alice in Chains. And it's a cool band. We recorded a record. We'll play again. We play locally every now and then. It's all like old. Everyone in the band is at least 10 years older than me. Like they're all like old Seattle rockers. But anyhow, so I do that. And then I literally I was never on Facebook my whole life. And I signed up for Facebook. And Sean from the band Mile Marker.
Oh yeah, they were fantastic. I remember that band.
He hit me up like within the first hour I was on Facebook and was like, Aaron, and we hadn't talked in a long time. And he, I don't think he would mind me saying this. He had gotten sober as well. And so we started talking about that, and he was like, hey, I have a bunch of songs. Can I send them to you to play drums on? He was playing guitar in this project. And I was like, yes, you can, but only if I can ask Dustin Perry to be the bass player. And Dustin from before I mentioned from Snapcase and Threadbare, because Dustin, I don't know if he's still on here, but he's just the biggest sweetheart and just an incredible musician. I mean, the bass playing on that Threadbare record, I was listening to it this morning, actually, yesterday morning. It's just the best. So we started that, and then we originally got Chris Broach from Braid. Was going to be our singer, and I recorded drums on the record, and Chris started recording vocals for it, and then it just didn't work out. We had a bunch of time stuff, and it didn't work out. So we went searching. We did this horrible thing for searching for singers, and Sean really wanted someone that sounded like something, and I wanted something that sounded like something. Sean and I butted heads a little bit on it, but I was like, what about Aaron from Seaweed?
And he was what a great voice, huh?
So I literally I got his email from a guy, and I emailed Aaron and was like, hey, you don't know me, I'm this guy from this band, here are these songs, would you want to sing on it? And Aaron wrote me back an hour later and was like, fuck yeah, I'm in. And so Erin is, and then since then we've all gotten to know each other, and it's like Dustin lives in New York, Erin lives in the Northern California, Sean lives in Chicago. We self-released a record, and then we're working on a second record right now.
Dude, I gotta check that out. I obviously, well, I was a huge Seaweed fan, and I am a huge Snapcase fan. So that sounds like something that just went under my radar that I need to check
Yeah,
out.
it's, I mean, that's the thing with self-releasing stuff a lot of the times, is that the record's great. I listened to it today. I actually learned a drum cover of it today here in my little room.
Nice. Look at that. Yeah.
I learned a drum cover today and posted it, and I was like, God, I forgot how much. But it's funny because like people talk about Seaweed and they're like, I wish they would have done something, and it's like, yeah, Erin is singing in this band. I'll move on quickly from there. So that's a band that we have a record out, Ghost Work it's called, and then we're recording another record soon, hopefully. And then last year, my friend Matt Armstrong messaged me and was like, hey, Jonathan from Unwed Sailor is looking for a drummer. And Jonathan and I got on the phone. He, like I mentioned earlier, he lives in Tulsa. We totally hit it off. And so I've spent a lot of this year going back and forth from Seattle to Tulsa to write a record, which is going to come out in March or April, I think. I recorded on it, and then Jonathan kind of decided that my style of drumming and stuff wasn't exactly what he was looking for in the band. So I just play it on the record is what the long story is. The record's great, and like, Jonathan's awesome, and it's a super cool record. I'm very proud of it. It'll be out soon, I'm sure. April.
I'm looking forward to hearing that, man. And I'm really looking forward to checking out Ghost Work. I wish I had checked that out before we had done this, but that sounds like a lot of people and bands that are up my alley. So yeah, man. I love that we got the chance to do this. We're at that time period now where we're about to wrap it up, but thank you so much. And if there's anything that you want to, well, let me just say this. If you guys want to follow what Erin is doing, if you're not already following him, follow him on Instagram and check out his band Ghost Work and the upcoming Unwed Sailor record that he's on. Anything else you want to announce or let people know about before we say goodbye to everybody?
Oh, no, I think we covered it. I'm just stoked. I mean, this year, as you know, Chris, like we've got some fun indie drummer collective stuff coming up that is pretty fucking rad, actually. And it's, that group of people just keeps growing, and I'm super psyched on that project. And I'm, as I'm sure you are too, like blessed and honored to be playing with some of the sickest fucking drummers, not playing with, but being part of a team with some of the sickest drummers. And so, yeah,
man. And it's true what they say, drummers are the more sociable people in the band, I guess. We have that reputation. So and I gotta tell you, the thing about that too is it forces us. I would not have played drums at all, probably, if I wasn't part of that, because like you said, I don't play drums by myself. I would like to, but it's mostly to prepare for tour recording. So it has forced me, as I'm sure it has for many other members, to get out of the house.
Yeah. Speaking of Unwed Sailor, Jonathan from Spartan Records just joined, so I'm going to say hi. And that record, for real life, you guys, it's going to be a really killer record. So make sure you check that out when it comes out. The Unwed Sailor record, when it comes out in April.
Yes. And again, if anybody wants to check out the drum collective stuff that we're talking about, if you go on Instagram and type in hashtag Indie Drummer Collective, a slew of videos from the past year or so will pop up that you can enjoy and check out. A lot of cool cover songs and whatnot. So cool, Erin. I'm sure we'll be talking a little bit anyway shortly, but
I'll talk to you tonight.
Yes.
we've got some December stuff to talk about, so I'll see you in our little secret indie chat room.
All right. Thank you again, Erin. Enjoy your evening, and talk to you in a bit. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. All right, that's been a great episode of Age of Quarantine. If you want to start from the beginning and you missed any of it, all you have to do is go on the St. Vitus Instagram channel. In the next minute or two, I'm going to make sure that it's up there. So thanks again, and you all roll. Stay safe out there. Excuse me. Wear masks, and keep that positive